The alarms screamed across Sanctuary Station like wounded animals. Council member Thexarn's claws scraped against the metal armrest of his chair as he stared at the holographic display. Something had just appeared at the edge of the system, and every sensor on the station was going crazy. "What is that thing?" demanded Councillor Lissail, her crystalline body pulsing with nervous energy. The station's head of security, a four-armed Velkari named Zixara, manipulated the controls with frantic precision. "Unknown vessel, Counselor. It just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The design doesn't match anything in our database." Thexarn leaned forward, studying the strange ship. It was small compared to the mighty dreadnoughts of the Krell Dominion or the elegant cruisers of the Velkari fleet. The vessel looked almost primitive, with smooth lines and none of the decorative elements that mark the ships of civilized species. But something about it made his predator instinct scream danger. "Size?" he asked. "Approximately 300 meters long. Minimal weapon signatures. Light shields if our sensors are reading correctly." Zixara paused, her antennae twitching. "Sir, it's not responding to any of our greeting protocols. We've tried every known language and frequency." The council chamber erupted in worried chatter. 12 different species, each representing billions of citizens across the galaxy, all confused by this single mysterious ship. This was supposed to be their space, their controlled zone. Nothing entered the core systems without permission. "Deploy the enforcement fleet," Thexarn ordered. 200 ships should be more than enough to handle one primitive vessel. Within minutes, the pride of the Velkari military surrounded the strange ship. Their hulls gleamed with fresh paint and their weapons charged with deadly plasma. Commander Zixara transmitted from her flagship, her voice steady and professional. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. Identify yourself immediately or we will be forced to take action." Silence answered her. The strange ship just hung there in the void, not moving, not responding. "Fire a warning shot across their bow," Thexarn commanded through the communication link. 3 plasma bolts, each capable of melting through a meter of solid titanium, streaked across the space between the fleet and the unknown vessel. They hit the ship's shields and simply vanished, absorbed without even a flicker of energy discharge. Every command center across the fleet went silent. "That's impossible," whispered Zixara. "Our plasma weapons should have at least caused some shield fluctuation. It's like they just disappeared." Then finally, the unknown vessel spoke. The voice was calm, measured, and spoke in perfect galactic standard, the common language every species learned. "We are humanity. We've come to talk." The word meant nothing. Computers across the station and fleet searched every database, every historical record, every survey of known space. No species called humanity existed. No planet called Earth appeared on any map. "Humanity?" Thexarn repeated the strange word. "Where do you come from? Why have you come here?" "We come from a planet called Earth, in what you would call the Outer Rim territories. We wish to request membership in the Galactic Council." Thexarn's laugh was sharp and cruel. "The Outer Rim? That wasteland? No advanced civilization could possibly develop there. You're either lying or delusional." Nevertheless, the calm voice continued, "We request permission to dock at Sanctuary Station and present our case to the Council." The Council members argued for nearly an hour. Some wanted to destroy the ship immediately. Others were curious. A few, like Councillor Cree, a small insectoid with a brilliant mind, pointed out that a species capable of creating shields that strong might be worth talking to. Eventually, curiosity won. Permission was granted, but the station went into full lockdown. Every guard was armed. Every weapon system was activated. The mysterious human ship would be allowed to dock, but one wrong move would mean instant destruction. As the vessel approached, something strange happened. Every sensor on Sanctuary Station failed simultaneously. Security cameras went dark. Scanner arrays went offline. Energy detectors showed nothing but static. The entire station was blind. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in red. Security teams scrambled into position, weapons ready. Thexarn felt his hearts racing, all 3 of them pounding against his ribcage. What kind of technology could shut down an entire space station? Then, just as suddenly as they had failed, the systems came back online. In the docking bay stood a single figure. It was bipedal, wearing an archaic-looking pressure suit that seemed like it belonged in a museum. The helmet was transparent, revealing a face that looked remarkably ordinary. 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. Soft skin with no visible armor or natural weapons. Hair on top of the head, dark and tied back neatly. The figure reached up and removed the helmet. It was a female of their species if Thexarn was reading the biological signs correctly. She smiled, a gesture that showed flat teeth with only slightly pointed canines. "My name is Sarah Chen," she said, her voice the same calm tone from the ship. "I am humanity's ambassador to the Galactic Council." Zixara's sensors swept over the human woman, then shifted to scan the ship still docked at the airlock. Her antennae went rigid with shock. "Counselor Thexarn," she whispered over the private channel. "The ship's power signature. It's not decreasing now that they've docked, so?" Thexarn replied, still watching the human ambassador. "Sir, it's growing. The ship is generating more power every second. I don't understand what I'm reading, but if these numbers are correct..." Her voice trailed off into terrified silence. Thexarn looked at the small, seemingly defenseless human standing in their docking bay. She carried no visible weapons. She showed no signs of aggression. She just stood there with that strange smile on her face. "How much power?" he asked quietly. "Enough to destroy this entire station," Zixara answered, "and it's still climbing." The council chamber was massive, built to accommodate the 12 ruling species of the galaxy. Thexarn sat in his elevated seat, looking down at the human ambassador who stood in the center of the circular room. Sarah Chen looked impossibly small and fragile, surrounded by beings 3 times her size. Counselor Lissail's crystalline form reflected the chamber's lights as she spoke. "Ambassador Chen, you come from a region of space we have never explored. You appear in a ship using unknown technology. You request membership in our council. This is highly irregular." Sarah nodded politely. "I understand your concerns, Counselor. Earth is indeed located far from the core systems. We developed independently without contact from other species, but we believe we have much to offer the galactic community." Thexarn snorted, a sound like grinding rocks. "Offer? What could a primitive species from the outer rim possibly offer us? We have technology spanning thousands of years of development. We have resources from 10,000 worlds. We have culture and art and science beyond your comprehension." "We have experience," Sarah replied simply. The council members looked at each other in confusion. Counselor Kree, the insectoid, clicked his mandibles together. "What kind of experience?" Sarah touched a control on her wrist and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a beautiful blue and green planet, clouds swirling over oceans and continents. "This is Earth, our home world. We are a young species by galactic standards. We only discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago." The image shifted, showing primitive humans in animal skins, hunting with stone tools. "We have existed as a sentient species for approximately 200,000 years. 200,000 years and only now achieving space travel?" Lissail's voice carried disbelief. "Most species reach the stars within 50,000 years of developing sentience. What took you so long?" Sarah's expression grew darker. "We were busy killing each other. The hologram changed, showing images of warfare. Ancient battles with swords and spears. Medieval sieges with catapults. Modern wars with guns and bombs. Nuclear explosions turning cities into ash. The council members watched in growing horror. In our history, we have fought over 65,000 recorded wars." Sarah continued, her voice steady despite the terrible images. "We have created weapons capable of destroying our entire planet. 3 times we came within minutes of actually using them. We have committed genocide against our own kind based on skin color, religion, and territory." Thexarn felt sick watching the images. This was worse than anything in the Krell Dominion's warrior history. These humans had turned violence into an art form. "We have destroyed entire ecosystems for profit. We have enslaved each other. We have tortured and murdered for pleasure and power." Sarah's voice never wavered. "At our worst, we were monsters who deserved to die out." "Then why are you showing us this?" demanded Counselor Vex, a slug-like being whose species had never known violence. "This is horrifying. You should be ashamed." "I am showing you this," Sarah said, and now her voice carried pride. "Because we survived it. We learned from it. We grew past it." The hologram shifted again. Now it showed humans building, creating, healing, space stations being constructed, diseases being cured, forests being replanted, people of different colors and cultures working together. We fought ourselves for thousands of years because we didn't know any better. Every lesson we learned came written in blood. But we did learn. We learned that strength without wisdom leads to destruction. We learned that different doesn't mean enemy. We learned that survival requires cooperation. She turned slowly, making eye contact with each council member. You ask what we can offer? We offer the knowledge that comes from climbing out of hell. We have made every mistake a species can make and found ways to fix them. We have faced extinction and chosen life. We have held ultimate power and chosen peace. Thexarn stood up, his massive form towering over the chamber. Pretty words, human. But words are cheap. You come here in one small ship, make grand claims about your species and expect us to simply believe you? No, Sarah said calmly. I expect you to test us. The chamber went silent. Test you how? Asked Cree, his antennae quivering with interest. You have military exercises, yes? Combat simulations to test the readiness of your fleets? Sarah smiled that strange human smile. Put us in one. One human ship against whatever you consider a standard defensive force. If we fail, we leave peacefully and never return. If we succeed, you seriously consider our application for council membership. Thexarn's predator instinct screamed again. There was a trap here somewhere. No species would willingly face military testing unless they were supremely confident. But confidence could be foolishness, and he wanted to see this human ship destroyed for making him feel afraid. Very well, he growled. One human ship against a standard patrol fleet. 20 vessels fully armed, in the Corvash proving grounds. Sarah nodded. Acceptable. When? Tomorrow. That gives you time to prepare. Thexarn leaned forward. And when we disable your ship and drag it back here, you will tell us all your secrets before you leave our space forever. If you can disable our ship, Counselor, I will personally hand over every technical manual we possess. Sarah's smile grew wider. But I should warn you of something. Warn us? Lysale asked. The ship you've seen, the one that brought me here. Sarah gestured toward the docking bay. That's not a warship. That's our diplomatic vessel, designed for first contact and peaceful negotiations. She tapped her wrist control again, and a new image appeared. It showed a massive vessel, easily 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons and armor plating. This is a human warship. What you'll face tomorrow is a greeting ship, a escort vessel we use to protect our diplomats. The council stared at the image. The ship looked nothing like the small, smooth vessel in their docking bay. That's impossible. Zixara's voice came over the communication system. Our sensors show your ship is only 300 meters long. Sarah's smile was almost apologetic. Counselor Thexarn, has no one ever taught you that humans are very good at hiding things? Especially things that are meant to hurt people? She walked toward the chamber exit, then paused and looked back. Oh, and one more thing. I should mention that the ship in your docking bay? It's been fully armed since we arrived. We just kept the weapons folded inside the hull. We find it makes other species more comfortable during first contact. As Sarah Chen left the chamber, Thexarn felt his blood run cold. The human had just admitted that a fully armed warship had been sitting in their docking bay for hours, and no one had detected it. Counselor Kree's small voice broke the silence. I think we may have made a terrible mistake. The Corvash proving ground stretched across empty space, filled with debris from ancient wars. Broken ships and shattered stations floated silently, serving as obstacles and reminders of past conflicts. Fleet Commander Zixara stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching 30 Velkari warships take their positions around the human vessel. All ships report ready, her tactical officer announced. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. The human ship is in the center of our formation. Zixara studied the human vessel on her display. It looked different now. The smooth hull had opened up in sections, revealing what appeared to be weapon ports and sensor arrays. The ship had indeed transformed from 300 meters to nearly 2 kilometers of deadly-looking machinery. Begin recording, she ordered. Every species in the galaxy will want to see this. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched their screens. Betting pools had formed on every civilized world. The odds heavily favored the Velkari fleet. 30 ships against one was simply impossible odds, no matter how advanced the technology. Sarah Chen's voice came over the open channel. Commander Zixara, we are ready to begin when you are. This is a standard combat exercise, Zixara replied, trying to keep her voice professional. We will attempt to disable your vessel using non-lethal force. You are permitted to defend yourself with similar restraint. The exercise ends when your ship is disabled or surrenders. Understood, Commander. Though I should clarify something. Yes? We will not be using non-lethal force. We will be using primitive force. There was something like amusement in the human's voice. We wouldn't want to damage your beautiful ships with our more advanced weapons. Zixara felt her antennae flatten against her head in anger. The arrogance of this human. Begin the exercise. 30 ships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma bolts and energy beams filled the space around the human vessel. Each shot carefully aimed to disable engines and weapons without destroying the ship entirely. The display lit up with enough firepower to level a small city. The human ship moved. It didn't accelerate or turn like a normal vessel. It simply appeared in a different location, as if it had teleported. Every shot passed through empty space where it had been a second before. What just happened? Zixara demanded. It moved, Commander. But our sensors didn't track any thrust signatures. It just moved. The human ship continued its impossible dance, dodging every shot with movements that defied physics. It rolled, spun, and shifted position faster than anything that size should be able to move. The Valkyrie ships adjusted their targeting, firing in patterns to cover all possible escape routes. The human vessel dodged every single shot. This is impossible, Zixara whispered. Nothing can move like that. Sarah's voice came again. You're using predictive targeting, Commander. Your computers calculate where we'll be based on our current trajectory, but we're calculating where your shots will be based on your firing patterns. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We learned to think 3 steps ahead, then the human ship fired back. The weapons were kinetic railguns, technology so ancient that most species had abandoned it thousands of years ago, but these projectiles moved at speeds that made Zixara's sensors scream warnings. They crossed the distance in fractions of a second, moving at nearly half the speed of light. 3 Valkyrie ships went dark immediately, their shields crumpling like paper against the primitive but devastating weapons. The solid metal slugs punched through energy barriers designed to stop plasma and lasers, not physical objects moving at relativistic speeds. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Zixara ordered. Scatter formation! The human ship broadcast another message. Switching to non-lethal suppression. Objects launched from the human vessel, dozens of them, each no larger than a trash container. They moved with purpose, spreading out across the battlefield with impossible accuracy. The Valkyrie ships tried to shoot them down, but the small objects dodged and weaved just like the main ship. One attached itself to Zixara's flagship with a magnetic clamp. Before her crew could react, it released a pulse of electromagnetic energy that shut down every system on the ship. Lights died. Weapons failed. Life support switched to emergency backup. The ship was dead in space. The same thing happened to 16 other vessels in the space of 2 minutes. Zixara watched helplessly from her darkened bridge as the remaining Valkyrie ships tried to flee. The human vessel didn't pursue. It just hung there in space, surrounded by disabled ships, not even scratched. Commander. Sarah's voice was gentle now, almost apologetic. Your remaining ships can leave. We have no desire to damage them further. The surviving vessels jumped to faster than light speed, running away from the battlefield. Zixara had never felt such shame in her entire military career. How? She asked over the communication channel. How did you do this? We identified every weakness in your ships before the battle even started, Sarah explained. Your shield frequency, your engine specifications, your weapon reload times. We knew exactly how you would fight, because we've fought opponents using similar tactics thousands of times in our own history. On Sanctuary Station, the Council watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. Thexarn's claws had actually dug grooves into his armrest. Sarah appeared on the main screen, standing on the bridge of her ship. Honored Council members, I want to make something very clear. Humanity doesn't seek to dominate the galaxy. We don't want to conquer or enslave. We've done those things to each other, and we know they lead nowhere but destruction. She gestured to the disabled ships floating around her. What you just witnessed was us holding back. We used ancient weapons technology and non-lethal suppression. We could have destroyed every ship in that fleet in the first 10 seconds of combat. If this is one ship, Counselor Lissail's voice was shaking. How many do you have? Sarah paused. The silence stretched for long seconds. Enough, she finally said. Humanity has prepared for war since we climbed down from the trees and picked up rocks. We have enough ships, enough weapons, enough soldiers to fight any threat we might face. Are you threatening us? Thexarn growled. No, Counselor. I'm explaining why you should welcome us rather than fear us. We have all this military power, All this capacity for destruction, and we're choosing to talk instead of conquer. We're choosing diplomacy instead of war. Don't you see? We've finally evolved past our violent nature. We want peace. Counselor Kree, who had been silent during the entire exchange, suddenly spoke up. Commander Zixara, what was the human ship's power output during the battle? There was a pause before Zixara answered. According to our sensors, never more than 10% of maximum capacity. The council chamber erupted in panic. The human ship had defeated 30 warships using only 1/10 of its power, but Kree wasn't finished. I've been analyzing deep space sensor data. There's something at the edge of the Sol system, something massive. He brought up a new display showing the human home system. Around their star was a structure, partially built but clearly visible. It was a Dyson swarm, thousands of platforms orbiting the sun and collecting its energy. They're harvesting their own star, Kree said, his voice filled with awe and terror. They have access to more energy than our entire civilization uses in a year. And they've been building this for decades. Thexarn stared at the image, finally understanding the true scope of what they were dealing with. The humans hadn't sent their military to make first contact. They had sent their diplomats. The ship that had just defeated a Velkari fleet wasn't even a warship by human standards. What have we done? Whispered Lissail. We challenged them. We threatened them. Sarah's face filled the screen again. You tested us, as was your right. Now you know what we're capable of. The question is, what happens next? Do we move forward as allies, or do we return to Earth and leave you wondering what might have been? The Council had no answer. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going for 12 hours. Species representatives shouted at each other across the chamber, their translators working overtime to convert rage and fear into words. We must accept them immediately, argued Councillor Vex, his slug-like body trembling. They could destroy us all if we refuse. That's exactly why we should reject them, Thexarn roared back. Accepting them means admitting we're inferior. It means living under the threat of human weapons forever. Councillor Lissail's crystalline form pulsed with angry red light. There is a third option, one that many of you are thinking but afraid to say out loud. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what she meant. We destroy them now, Lissail continued. Before they grow stronger. Before they build more ships. Before they complete that solar collection system. We strike Earth with everything we have and end this threat forever. The vote was split. 7 species wanted to accept humanity. 3 wanted to reject them peacefully. 2 wanted war. The Krell Dominion cast the deciding vote. They were the galaxy's fiercest warriors, proud and powerful. Their High Commander, Vrakthos, made the announcement that would change everything. The Krell Dominion will not bow to these upstart humans. We will mobilize our full armada and teach them that real warriors do not hide behind technology. We will show the galaxy that the Krell are still the supreme military power. Within hours, 800 Krell warships assembled. It was the largest military fleet ever gathered in galactic history. Their hulls were decorated with kill marks from 1,000 battles. Their crews were trained from birth to fight and die with honor. Sarah Chen received the ultimatum in her quarters on Sanctuary Station. She had 72 hours to leave galactic space, or the Krell fleet would jump to Earth and destroy humanity's home world. She requested a communication channel to Earth. The request was denied, but Sarah just smiled. Earth already knew everything. The human ship had been transmitting real-time data since they arrived. The Krell armada jumped to faster than light speed, heading for the Sol system. They would arrive in 3 hours. Vrakthos stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bloody Spear, feeling the satisfaction of impending victory. We will destroy their partially built star collector first, he told his officers. Then we will burn their planet until nothing remains but ash. The galaxy will remember that the Krell showed these humans their place. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. There was nothing there. No planets. No star, no debris, no sign that a solar system had ever existed in this location. Navigation error? Vrakthos demanded. No, sir, his navigator replied, voice shaking. This is the correct location. Exactly where the Sol system should be, but there's nothing here. Confused murmurs ran through the Krell command structure. Some thought it was a trick. Others wondered if the humans had somehow evacuated their entire system. A few whispered about weapons that could destroy stars, then space itself shimmered. The emptiness flickered like a broken hologram, and reality snapped back into place. The Sol system appeared exactly where it should have been. The star blazed bright and yellow. Planets orbited peacefully, and surrounding it all was the Dyson swarm, now clearly visible. But the system wasn't alone. 50,000 human vessels decloaked simultaneously. They appeared in a perfect sphere formation around the Krell fleet, surrounding them completely. The ships ranged from small corvettes to massive battle stations the size of moons. Every single one had weapons powered and ready. Vrakthos felt his blood freeze. In all his years of warfare, he had never seen a force this large. The Krell Armada, 800 ships strong, was completely trapped. Sarah Chen's voice broadcast across every Krell communication channel. High Commander Vrakthos, you came here to destroy one species that sought only peace. You brought an armada to burn a world that offered you friendship. The sphere of human ships tightened slightly, moving closer to the surrounded Krell fleet. Humanity learned something long ago, something written in the blood of billions of our own people. Peace isn't just the absence of war. Peace requires the strength to enforce it, and the wisdom to know when to use that strength. One human vessel separated from the formation. It was smaller than the others, clearly marked as a testing platform. Weapons arrays deployed from its hull, unlike anything the Krell had seen before. We will not fire first, Sarah continued. We never do. That's a rule we learned after nearly destroying ourselves. But if you attack, we will respond, and there will be no need for a third exchange of fire. The testing platform fired its experimental weapon. A focused gravitational beam lanced out and grabbed a nearby asteroid. The rock, easily a kilometer across, began to compress. In seconds, it had shrunk to the size of a basketball. Then it collapsed into a point of darkness and simply ceased to exist, consumed by an artificial black hole that vanished as quickly as it appeared. The Krell watched in horror as a weapon erased matter from existence. That's one ship using one weapon, Sarah said quietly. We have 50,000 ships here. Each one carries weapons you cannot imagine because we spent 10,000 years imagining ways to kill each other. We got very, very good at it. Vrakthos looked at his tactical display. His officer whispered the impossible truth. Commander, their weapons aren't even fully charged yet. The heat signatures are all wrong. They haven't armed their main weapons. This is still just a warning. The High Commander had faced death many times. He had fought in battles where the odds were 10 to 1 against him. But this wasn't battle. This was execution, just waiting to happen. He could order the attack. The Krell would fight bravely and die with honor. But they would accomplish nothing except proving that humanity's weapons worked as advertised. All ships, Vrakthos said, each word tasting like poison. Retreat. Full speed. Return to Krell space immediately. The Krell Dominion, the fiercest warriors in the galaxy, fled without firing a single shot. Back on Sanctuary Station, the Council watched the recordings in absolute silence. Some species began preparing immediate surrender. Others started drafting alliance proposals. A few simply sat in shock, unable to process what they had witnessed. Sarah Chen walked into the Council chamber. No guard stopped her. No one dared to even speak as she approached the center of the room. Honored Council members, she said, her voice echoing in the silent chamber. Humanity doesn't want your surrender. We don't want your fear. We don't want to rule you or replace you. She activated a holographic display. It showed medical technology, agricultural advances, power generation systems, all clearly human in design. We want to share. Everything we've learned, everything we've developed, all of it is yours. Free of charge. No strings attached. Why? Counselor Kree asked, his voice small and confused. Why give us this technology? Why not use your power to dominate us? Sarah smiled sadly. Because we've been where you are. Afraid, uncertain, facing something we didn't understand. And we learned that fear leads to hate. Hate leads to violence, and violence leads to extinction. We almost destroyed ourselves learning that lesson. We won't let others make the same mistakes. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each council member. But understand this and understand it completely. Earth protects Earth always. We will defend ourselves against any threat from any source with whatever force is necessary. That will never change. We will share our technology. We will trade fairly. We will be your allies if you want us. But we will not be victims. We will not be conquered. And we will not allow genocide, slavery, or oppression anywhere we have the power to stop it. Thexarn stood slowly. The predator species that had ruled the council through strength now faced something stronger. What if we refuse your offer? What if we tell you to leave and never return? Then we leave, Sarah said simply. And we close our borders. No trade, no communication, no contact. We'll watch from our corner of space and hope you find your way to peace without us. But we won't force ourselves on anyone. The council deliberated for 3 days. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Council. With one condition: they would share their defensive technology but keep their offensive weapons to themselves. Sarah agreed immediately. As she left the chamber, Councillor Kree approached her. Ambassador Chen, can I ask you something? Of course. The power we saw, the weapons, the ships, was that really everything humanity has? Sarah looked at the small insectoid and considered her answer carefully. Counselor, what you saw was what we were willing to show you. The real answer to your question would only frighten you more. And fear is what we're trying to move beyond. She walked away, leaving Kree to wonder just how deep humanity's preparations truly went. The galaxy had been broken by fear. Now it had to learn to live with the species that had caused it. 6 months had passed since the Sol incident, as it was now called. Sarah Chen walked through Sanctuary Station with only a single assistant following her. No armed guards, no security detail. No one would dare threaten her now. Not because they loved humanity, but because they feared what would happen next. The galaxy was changing in ways no one had predicted. 3 major species had joined the Terran Accord, a mutual defense and trade alliance with humanity at its center. The Velkari, humiliated by their defeat, had been the first to sign. They recognized strength when they saw it, and they wanted to be on the winning side. Humanity kept its promises. Medical technology that could cure diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia was shared freely. Agricultural techniques that could feed billions were distributed without cost. Power generation systems were given to any species that asked. No questions or payments required. But weapon technology remained locked away in human databases, guarded by encryption that no one could break. The secret meeting happened in a forgotten storage bay on the station's lower levels. High Commander Vrakthos of the Krell Dominion waited there, alone and without his usual honor guard. When Sarah arrived, he stood at attention, a gesture of respect he had never shown to another species. Ambassador Chen, thank you for agreeing to meet me. Sarah nodded. What can I do for you, Commander? Vrakthos struggled with his words, his pride fighting against the question he needed to ask. Why didn't you destroy us? At Sol, you had complete tactical superiority. You could have eliminated the Krell Dominion entirely. But you let us go. Why? Sarah was quiet for a moment, then she gestured to a nearby crate. They both sat down, 2 warriors from different species trying to understand each other. Commander, do you know how many wars humanity fought in our history? Your record said over 60,000. That's just the ones we bothered to record. The real number is probably double that. Sarah looked at her hands as if seeing blood that had been washed away long ago. We've been where you are, Commander. Proud, aggressive, absolutely certain that our way was the only way. That strength meant domination. And you changed. We almost destroyed ourselves. 3 times we came within minutes of turning Earth into a radioactive wasteland. Nuclear weapons, biological plagues, nanomachine swarms that could have consumed all organic matter on the planet. We built them all and we nearly used them. Sarah met Vrakthos's eyes. We learned that strength without wisdom is just suicide with extra steps. You can kill your enemy, but if it cost you everything you are, have you really won? The Krell commander was silent, processing this. His entire culture was built on military honor and strength. The idea that strength could be a weakness was almost incomprehensible. Your people will find their own path, Sarah continued. But maybe you can learn from our mistakes instead of making them yourselves. That's why we didn't destroy you, because we hope you'll become better than we were. Before Vrakthos could respond, every alarm on Sanctuary Station began screaming. Sarah and the commander ran to the nearest command center. Councillor Kree was already there, his small body trembling as he stared at the sensor displays. What's happening? Sarah demanded. Kree pointed at the screen with a shaking appendage. Deep space monitoring stations are detecting massive energy signatures beyond the galactic rim. Something is coming, and it's big. The display showed formations of unknown vessels, hundreds of them, moving toward the galaxy in organized attack patterns. Each ship was enormous, larger than anything the Council had ever built. The Velkari recognized this pattern, Kree said, his voice breaking. It matches ancient warnings in our oldest archives. The Devourers are returning. Sarah felt ice in her veins. What are devourers? Machine intelligence. They consume biological life to fuel their expansion. They arrive every 50,000 years to harvest the galaxy. Cree pulled up historical records showing dead worlds, extinct civilizations, entire sectors of space reduced to lifeless rock. Last time they came, 90% of all species went extinct. The survivors only lived because the devourers eventually left. How long do we have? 3 weeks until they reach the first inhabited systems. Emergency council sessions were called. Every species sent their leaders or representatives. The chamber was packed with beings from across the galaxy, all terrified of the approaching doom. The argument started immediately. Old grudges surfaced like poison. The Krell refused to fight alongside the Velkari. The crystalline collective wouldn't coordinate with species they considered primitive. Alliances that had existed for centuries shattered in hours. We must return to our home worlds, shouted Councillor Lissail. Every species for themselves. We build defenses and hope they pass us by. The council fractured completely. Species began evacuating Sanctuary Station, preparing to seal their borders and defend only their own territory. The United Galactic Government that had existed for 10,000 years fell apart in a single day. Sarah stood in the center of the chaos and made a decision. Earth will hold the line. The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to the human ambassador. My government has authorized me to make this announcement, Sarah continued. Humanity will deploy our full military fleet to the galactic rim. We will meet the devourers there and stop them, or at least slow them down. Why? Thexarn asked. Why would you sacrifice yourselves for us? After how we treated you? Sarah smiled, but there was sadness in it. Because it's the right thing to do. Because we have the power to help and the wisdom to know we should use it. Because that's what civilized beings do. She activated a galactic map. Any species that wants to evacuate civilians to human-controlled space, our borders are open. We'll protect your refugees. Any species that wants to fight will share our weapons, our tactics, our ships. Everything we have is yours to use. But we can't work together, Vex protested. We hate each other too much. Then you'll learn, Sarah said firmly, or you'll die. The devourers don't care about your politics or your grudges. They just want to consume you. So you can fight together or you can die alone. Choose. Over the next 2 weeks, something remarkable happened. Species that had been enemies for millennia began coordinating. Human officers took command of mixed species fleets, not through conquest but through necessity. The Krell learned to fight alongside the Velkari. The crystalline collective shared intelligence with species they had previously ignored. Sarah stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, the Indomitable, watching the fleet assemble. 50,000 human ships formed the center line. Around them, another 30,000 vessels from allied species took positions. It was the largest military force in galactic history, united for the first time. The Devourers arrived exactly on schedule. 10,000 vessels of terrifying design, part organic and part machine, hungry and unstoppable. They had consumed 1,000 galaxies. They had never been defeated. The battle was brutal. For every Devourer ship destroyed, 2 allied vessels fell. The machines learned and adapted, their weapons growing more efficient with each exchange. The allied fleet was being pushed back slowly but inevitably. Sarah watched the tactical display, her mind racing. They were losing. In another hour, the line would break and the Devourers would pour into the galaxy. Commander, her weapons officer said quietly, the Dyson swarm is fully charged. We can fire the solar beam. Sarah had hoped it wouldn't come to this. The solar beam was humanity's ultimate weapon, built in secret over decades. It could focus the entire output of Earth's sun into a single devastating strike. But using it meant revealing that humans could weaponize stars. Fire, she ordered. At Earth, the Dyson swarm activated. Thousands of collection platforms redirected the sun's energy into focusing arrays. A beam of stellar fire, containing more energy than some civilizations used in a year, lanced across the galaxy at the speed of light. It hit the Devourer command ship and everything around it. Matter didn't just melt or vaporize. It simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the atomic level by the unimaginable heat and energy. A sphere 1,000 kilometers wide became empty space. The remaining Devourers, for the first time in their existence, retreated. They had never encountered prey that could fight back with the power of stars. The Allied fleet had won, but the cost was terrible. 15% of all ships were destroyed. Thousands of beings had died, but they had survived. In the aftermath, the council reformed. Humanity was given a permanent seat, not through force but through gratitude. Species that had watched humans fight and die for them could no longer deny their place among the stars. But the real change was deeper. The Krell proposed a lasting peace treaty with the Velkari. The crystalline collective opened its borders to smaller species. Enemies became allies because they had learned what humanity already knew. Survival requires cooperation. Vrakthos approached Sarah on Sanctuary Station a month after the battle. "Ambassador, I wanted to thank you." The Krell were taught from birth that strength means domination. "You showed us that real strength means protection." Sarah smiled. "You would have learned it eventually, Commander. We just helped you learn it faster and with fewer deaths." As the weeks passed, Sarah prepared to return to Earth. Her mission was complete. Humanity was part of the galactic community, not as conquerors but as equals and protectors. A young ensign on her ship asked her a question as they prepared to depart. "Ma'am, do you think they'll remember us as the scary humans? The ones with terrible weapons and dark history?" Sarah looked out at the diverse fleet of allied vessels surrounding them, species that had been enemies now working together. "No, Ensign. They'll remember us as the species that arrived alone and taught the galaxy to stand together." The Indomitable broke orbit and headed for Earth. Behind it, construction continued on defensive stations across the galaxy. New fleets were being built with shared technology. Former enemies trained together. Humanity had hoped for peace but prepared for war. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy that the two weren't opposites. Peace required strength and strength required wisdom. 50 years later, a new species was discovered in uncharted space. They were primitive, aggressive, and dangerous. The Galactic Council debated what to do with them. Then humanity's representative stood. "We'll make first contact. We remember what it's like to be the newcomers. We remember what it's like to be feared for our potential, rather than welcomed for our present. And we remember who gave us a chance despite their fear." The human delegation left for the unknown species' homeworld. Behind them, the galaxy watched with hope instead of fear. They had learned that different didn't mean enemy, that strength could protect instead of destroy. That civilization wasn't about being perfect, but about choosing to be better. The galaxy was no longer breaking in terror. It was rebuilding in hope, and at the center of it all was a species that had climbed out of their own darkness and brought light to the stars.